Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle Jobin, and you are listening to Time to Talk, a podcast for caregivers. This podcast is dedicated to helping family caregivers in Ontario. Through expert tips and resources, you will gain knowledge and validation for the ups and downs that come with caregiving. More importantly, you'll learn that you're not alone. It's so important to take this time for yourself. We're glad you're here. Today, we have teamed up with sleep expert Alanna McGinn to discuss the importance of a good night's sleep and how caregivers can improve their sleep. Alanna is the founder and lead sleep expert at Goodnight Sleep Site, host of the This Girl Loves Sleep podcast, and author of This Baby Loves Sleep. And I am very excited to talk about this subject. Alanna, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
I actually have a quick little question for you. How did you become a sleep expert?
So I became a sleep expert 14 years ago when my first daughter was born. Well, actually, I wasn't a sleep expert 14 years ago when my first daughter was born. I was much like a lot of new parents that we work with, knew nothing about, baby sleep, child sleep, any kind of sleep. We just thought we would sleep and just, started doing my research. Back then, the industry, sleep consultants wasn't really an industry as it is now. I had my daughter, sleep trained her, started helping friends sleep train, and then got certified, was pregnant with my twins and knew I wanted to start my own business. And I always say birthed my business and birthed my twins pretty much around the same time. And now we have over 20 consultants throughout Canada and the US. And now we have gone on to helping tweens and teens and adults as well. And that's how we started.
This is amazing because it's such an essential component to good mental health, physical health, and really everything in life. So that's why I'm really excited to talk to you about this topic. So let's start with the basics. Alanna, can you touch a little bit on your Bring Back Bedtime initiative and why you felt it was important to advocate for healthy adult or family sleep patterns? There's so much focus on baby sleep patterns, but let's talk about why you wanted to look at this through the lens of adults and the whole family.
Well, what was happening was, we were speaking on a lot of babies and toddlers, and we were having not just adults, but also seniors coming up to us and, grandparents saying, my grandkids or my kids sleep great, but I'm not sleeping great. And this was, going back a few years ago. So I realized that was, we had to dive more into adult sleep. And we developed the Bring Back Bedtime initiative because whether it's having the bedtime routine with your child, with your partner, or just with yourself, it is the one time of the day where we can really commit to, like I said, either that person or yourself. We are such busy individuals. I don't really like to speak on the topic of balance because being a mom of 3, being a wife, running my own business, managing a team of 20, I don't think balance really exists. I think sometimes some things are neglected because focus needs to be put on something else. And I think that's okay. We need to take that pressure off a bit. But I do think that bedtime is a time where we can, turn off the distractions and really just focus on self-care, focus on mind, body, and soul, focus on giving the attention to either the person you're with, whether that be your child or partner or yourself. So Bring Back Bedtime is just that time where we can really focus on ourselves or that individual to help prepare us to sleep well.
And I think when we're speaking specifically about how this relates to caregivers, your comment there about, look, sometimes balance just isn't possible. I think it's something that many of our caregivers can relate to. Sometimes things are just do not feel in balance. And I think that's maybe why it's even more important to have that focus on bedtime and getting enough sleep. Would you say that would be true?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's something that I talk a lot about because again, I think also, and this isn't to say men don't feel the same pressures, but I think as a woman also, again, as a mom, as a partner, as a boss, we tend to put a lot of pressure on ourselves.
And I think we can have really busy schedules as individuals, but if we achieve the amount of sleep that we need, perhaps that's okay if we're go, go, go during the day. So what I like, and I think the magic question here is that everybody wants to know, what is an ideal or healthy amount of sleep that we all should be getting a night? And is there a one size fits all answer to that?
Yeah, you know what? And a lot of people will say that there is. There's those 7 to 8 hours, right? We always hear you should be getting 7 to 8 hours on average of sleep per night. And it's not to say that that's not true. That is a great goal to achieve, but everyone has their own personal baseline of sleep. So their own personal basal sleep needs. When we say 7 to 8 hours, it doesn't mean that somebody perhaps can't function fine and be healthy and well on just 6 hours. It doesn't, maybe someone perhaps needs 9 hours of sleep. I think if you're looking to create a sleep plan for yourself, aim for those 7 to 8 hours. If you feel like you function fine on 4 or 5 hours of sleep, I will likely say that that's not the case. What tends to happen is our judgment of how much sleep we need shifts in the amount of sleep that we get regularly. So I always kind of equate it to drinking, right? The more you drink, your tolerance for alcohol increases, right? And the more you have to drink to, if you want to feel good, let's just say that. So the less you sleep, the less sleep you get each night, you feel like you can function fine on it because you do. You wake up and you function. But what's going on inside you is likely telling you a different story. So definitely try to aim more than 4 to 5 hours. We don't want to aim for just that. If you can aim for 7 to 8, that's great. If you're only getting 6, that's okay. If you need maybe more than 9, that's okay. You have to see what works best for you without going past 6.
Okay. And I assume that the quality of sleep that you get has something to do with that as well.
You know what? In saying all of that, and I love that you brought that up, I would prefer someone to get a really good, let's say 5 hours of quality sleep as opposed to 7 hours of what we call junk sleep. So of not getting great quality of sleep. And that can play, different things can play a role in the quality of sleep that you're getting. And I know we'll talk about that, but focus on the quality, not just the quantity as well. That's important for sure.
So you've talked about the importance of meditation or mindfulness before bed versus what I often do, which is watch TV. So let's talk about why this is important. And can you give us some examples of what mindfulness or meditation can look like for the average person? Because that might be an intimidating concept.
It absolutely is. It's intimidating for me because I am the type of person that, I like to say I don't have time to. Of course, I could make the time to do it, but I don't know that I necessarily want to learn how to properly meditate. But for me, my meditation and my mindful way. So when we say meditation and mindfulness, that is just taking you into a present state of mind. So to remove the distractions, the constant to-do list that you could be thinking of, what happened yesterday that could be amping your anxiety or stress, what happened 10 years ago, what could possibly happen tomorrow. We want to just go into that present state of mind. And for those that are listening, obviously for caregivers, this is probably a huge topic, the what ifs, right? Or the, what should I do more of? So just taking you into that present state of mind. So for me, for meditation and mindfulness is walking outside. This is something that I've done since I was a teenager. It's something that I try and get outside and do every day, weather permitting, and obviously workload permitting. But definitely 5 days a week, I am outside going for a walk. For me, that is my mindfulness and meditation. And I may be listening to music. I might be listening to a podcast. I might be listening to an audiobook, but it's just taking me out of my constant ruminating thoughts that are going through my head, because we all have them. We're human, right? So it's finding what works for you. It might not be that you want to learn how to meditate. If you want to, please do so. There's great guided apps too. We talked a little bit about, you mentioned tech, but there's great apps that you can download and use that will help you through guided meditation and guided mindful thinking and mindful breathing. Takes kind of the guesswork away if you're a little intimidated by learning how to do it. But it's finding the best way for you just to kind of stay in that present state of mind. And that's a great thing to incorporate, not just at bedtime, but when you do wake up in the middle of the night and your brain just kind of explodes, because now we don't have those distractions that are keeping all those worrisome thoughts at bay. And that's when our brain just tends to start thinking about everything.
Yeah, I know for me, if I wake up because I, hear something outside or something external to myself, I find it really hard to get back to sleep, because that is when my brain starts going. I'm okay at getting to sleep.
Yeah.
But my brain will just be like, okay, because it's quiet, it's the middle of the night, there's nothing else to think about. And that's when I think about all my worries. So that's a really great point. A meditation moment or two, I'm assuming, would help rein that back in.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where the apps can really, really come into play. And you mentioned tech too. I mean, tech obviously is something that I talk a lot about in terms of removing it from the sleep environment. I think that that's important. I have changed my stance on that a little bit though. And I think that this would really apply to some of your listeners as well. Again, being a mom of three, being a busy, having a busy workload during the day, I understand the enjoyments of those quiet evening hours when kids are in bed, or those that you're caring for is maybe in bed and asleep, and you just want to watch that show on Netflix, and you just want to get caught up with friends through text, or you want to surf social media a little bit. Like, I understand the enjoyment in that. So I do think that instead of me just saying remove it, work on setting those boundaries. And this could be part of a mindfulness and meditation process, and just staying away from the social media, the shows, the news, because everything on the news is, worrisome and stressful right now, but staying away from anything that could trigger those anxieties and those stress factors. But if watching a show on Netflix, a show that's lighthearted and just makes you feel light and calm, and watching an episode or two before you go to bed is what's going to help you put you in a better state of mind, who am I to tell you not to do that? So if you're really struggling with sleep, then yes, we want to try and remove those bright screens and remove tech. But if, catching up with a friend who you haven't been able to speak to or see in a while is just going to help put you in a better state of mind, I say go for it.
That makes a lot of sense to me. It's whatever is that little bit of escapism or relaxation for you.
Escapism, exactly.
All family caregivers face challenges, which is why the Ontario Caregiver Organization created the Peer Support Program. This program is a free resource where you can share your experiences with other caregivers to help build your confidence and make you feel more supported by those who understand what you're going through. Go to ontariocaregiver.ca to be matched with a peer mentor today. Remember, you're not alone. Now, back to our episode. So we touched on quality of sleep a little bit previously, Alanna, but I want to dive in a little bit further because there are many elements that can affect the quality of our sleep. So let's talk about, first of all, supplementation. What are some of the vitamins and supplements that you recommend that could potentially help our sleep?
Right. Well, I always talk about the 2 M's. So the one that always comes up is melatonin, right? I'm seeing more and more people turning to that supplement to help them sleep better because it's promoted and spoken of as a sleep aid. I do think it's important to talk about the fact that melatonin is a natural sleep hormone that we all have. This helps regulate our natural sleep rhythms. It helps regulate our circadian rhythms, which is a big driver to our sleep. It's very rare for an individual to be deficient in melatonin. So I think that's important to talk about. For individuals who maybe have some sleep disorders like delayed sleep phase disorder or circadian rhythm disorder, or that travel a lot and are going through jet lag, maybe even going as far as taking certain medications, with our children who perhaps have ADHD and taking some ADHD medicine, it can play a role in that. So that is a conversation that you would either want to have with your doctor or perhaps with your naturopath, but it's something that you can easily get tested for just through a basic saliva test even. It's not the first thing that I would reach for if I was having difficulty sleeping, because typically the supplements you're taking, you're either probably taking not enough, not the right amount that you need. The supplements itself aren't being released properly in your body. They're normally released in short and fast bursts, whereas our natural melatonin is released in slow and soft waves. So if you're looking to properly release your melatonin, this is when you want to focus on that sleep environment. So darkening up the room. Our melatonin is mainly driven off of external factors like the light and the dark of the day. This is why when it's night out, our drive for sleep is stronger, because that tends to be when our natural melatonin does release. So, darkening up the room, making sure before you go to bed, again, getting away from those bright screens if you have to. The other M that I like to talk about in terms of supplements is magnesium. And this is one that I actually normally recommend if you are struggling with sleep. And again, this is a conversation always to have with your doctor first. I'm not a medical doctor, so I don't like to say this is what you should be taking, but discuss it with your doctor, discuss it with perhaps your naturopath. Magnesium can aid in calming the body, relaxing the body and mind. So it can be a great supplement to take, whether you take it in the morning with your normal supplements or you take it in the evening. Again, this is where your doctor naturopath would advise the right amount to take and when to take it, even a great brand to take too. I believe that everybody should take. Actually, Health Canada has recent study that came out in Health Canada stated that 43% of Canadians were deficient in magnesium. So you can also get it through foods, leafy greens, beans and lentils and things like that, but really focusing on more the magnesium than the melatonin in terms of supplements.
That would be your go-to first before
Yeah.
you. Okay.
Yeah.
That's good to know. What about our lifestyle habits? And again, we're speaking about this in the framework of our caregivers, and I want to dive a little bit more into that. But there are, lifestyle habits that could apply to anyone. Things like drinking alcohol, smoking, our diet, and I'd like to throw in the idea of exercise as well. How can any of these things affect our sleep?
Well, I mean, if we look at our three pillars of health, we're looking at nutrition, we're looking at exercise, and we're looking at sleep. Those are our three pillars. How we sleep, the right amount of sleep, the right quality of sleep. In my opinion, sleep is kind of the base, the foundation of the other two pillars. And that's not just because sleep is what I do, but when you're not sleeping well, when you're deficient in sleep or you're suffering from chronic sleep deprivation, you're probably not making the best food choices, the healthier food choices. Your body isn't able to metabolize food as well. It isn't able to digest food as well or as quickly. So really focusing on great sleep so that we can make better food choices. But again, it's kind of the chicken before the egg. We also want to make better food choices in order to sleep better. So focusing on more whole foods, on more natural foods, and trying to stay away from some of the processed and obviously spicy and things like that. For exercise, we should be focusing, and I know that this can be difficult for some to find the time to do it, but we really should be focusing on at least 30 minutes of vigorous activity per day. So you're looking at about 150 minutes per week. The reason why we want to focus on that daily exercise is this is our goal from the moment we wake up in the morning is we want to work on building a strong drive for sleep so that it's easier for us to fall asleep at bedtime at night. In order to build that drive for sleep, one is we have to start waking up at more consistent times in the morning if we can. So having that, we call it the 80-20 rule. So 80% of the time going to bed at the same time at night, waking up at the same time in the morning, but then also incorporating daily exercises is going to help build that drive for sleep. So it's easier for us to fall asleep. And in doing so, we're going to sleep better. So again, chicken before the egg, we need to work out to sleep better, but we also need to sleep better to have the energy to work out, right? So in terms of lifestyle habits, we want to focus on that. For drinking, I hate to tell someone not to have a glass of wine at dinner or after dinner because I know I enjoy doing that. But what you have to keep in mind is, yes, alcohol might make it easier for you to fall asleep. But once the alcohol starts leaving your system, and that typically happens throughout the night, shortly after a few hours, it will disrupt the phase of sleep that you are in. So bringing it back to the quality of sleep that we're getting, we want to be able to get into that deep REM sleep, and that alcohol breakup or the alcohol leaving your body will actually cause fragmented sleep phases. So now we're in that lighter state of sleep, which doesn't allow us to get that great quality of sleep. Talking about, things like caffeine and smoking, I mean, both of these are stimulants, right? So for caffeine, it can take up to 10 hours that it's in your body. It gets absorbed very quickly, but then it can take up to 10 hours to stay in your body. So if you are struggling with sleep, I do normally recommend staying away from any kind of caffeine by noon throughout the day. For smoking again is a stimulant. It depends on how dependent you are on it. Your body can go through withdrawals throughout the night, and therefore, again, not allowing you to get that deep quality of sleep that you should be getting.
That's yet another reason to quit smoking, I suppose.
Exactly. There's many reasons to quit, and that's definitely one of them.
Now, when it comes to alcohol, you mentioned, the very normal habit of having a glass of wine with dinner. Is there a line? And I guess it's determined by the body mass, perhaps, of the person that is drinking as well. But if you have one glass versus two glasses versus three, you know what I mean? Serving alcohol, where is the shift beyond a point where it's more of a negative thing?
Meaning like the time frame of when to stop?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say at least 4 hours before bedtime to limit your alcohol. Again, if you're a relatively good sleeper and you're not struggling with any sleep and it's an every now and then thing, I wouldn't worry about it. But if you are struggling with sleep or you are looking to change some lifestyle habits in order to sleep better, and that some alcohol perhaps could be curbed at night, I would recommend just having that glass at dinner, and then that's it. and stopping at that point.
So always the less, the better, essentially.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, a topic that affects really everyone, but again, bringing things back to caregiving, a lot of our caregivers do say that they experience stress in relation to juggling their schedules and caregiving, even though it can be incredibly rewarding as well. What kind of impact does stress have on our sleep?
So when we spoke about melatonin before, so melatonin obviously helps prepare our body to sleep. In the morning, our melatonin is suppressed when we're in the middle of when we immerse ourselves in that natural light, and what increases is our adrenaline and our cortisol. So there's that shift. So at night, we want to suppress the adrenaline and cortisol and release the melatonin. When we are experiencing a lot of stress, a lot of worry and anxiety, we're in that fight or flight mode, our stress and anxiety levels increase, and therefore so does our cortisol and our adrenaline, which suppresses our melatonin. So again, it doesn't prepare our body to sleep, to fall asleep. It doesn't allow our body to get into that deep quality of sleep that we need to get. So at night, even though it can be difficult to do, but definitely not impossible to do, is when we want to kind of alleviate some of those stress and anxiety levels in order to sleep well. So going back again to more mindful ways of thinking, more mindfulness and mindful breathing activities, but also really focusing on preparing your environment to sleep well so that you're building that strong association between sleep and, say, your bedroom. You could do that in multiple ways, but I know for some who are perhaps caregivers, your bedroom can also be your escape room. It's where you kind of go to just to have that moment alone or to have that time to yourself. But we want to make sure that we're not using that room as like our home office, which is happening now so much with the pandemic, as our kids' school classroom, as our entertainment center, as our home gym. We want to be kind of clearing away that clutter and really just creating that sleep sanctuary space.
Yeah, I think about this a lot, actually, how much we do this for babies and children in
Mm-hmm.
terms of creating a space and a ritual before bedtime. And I think many of us, and we've talked about the meditation and the mindfulness, but I think a lot of us forget to do that for ourselves as adults.
Absolutely. And something that I talk a lot about is what we have to understand too is when you are making those changes to sleep better. And so creating that sleep plan, whatever that sleep plan might be. So we've talked a lot about a lot of things. Maybe you want to include more meditation and mindfulness. Maybe you want to, cut down on your alcohol and eat better and exercise or create a sleep space. This is a sleep plan that essentially you are creating. So you have to look at it in the same way that you would look at a nutritional plan or a workout plan. This is the time of year where people start thinking about these things, right? I'm going to start working out more. I'm going to start eating better. So you put a plan together. I'm going to work out these days. On these days, these are the exercises I'm going to do. These are the meals I'm going to make. This is my grocery list to buy the meals. And you commit to those plans for however long you have to see those results. But what happens with a sleep plan or sleep changes or, any kind of sleep goals you want to reach is because we sleep. So we might not be sleeping enough. We might not be getting the quality of sleep. We don't put the same value of that plan as we would a workout plan or a nutritional plan, because you're not working out. The foods, you see the foods that you're putting in your mouth. Understand the changes that you have to make. So first you have to understand what changes you have to make, why you need to make them, but then commit to that plan. You have to keep chipping away at it. You're not just going to start sleeping great the first night you implement it, and you have to be okay with that. So we have to put the same value in the sleep plan that we create as we do any other kind of wellness plan that we create for ourselves.
Let's say we have created that plan and we're doing our best to follow that. But if a caregiver has trouble falling asleep after a really particularly difficult day, or a long day for that matter, where we're just go, go, go all day long, what can we do to wind down?
Yeah, this is where you focus on that bedtime routine. So what I always like to break it up in 20-minute increments. So the first 20 minutes, focusing on that hour. So that first 20 minutes, I always like to prepare for the next day, because that might take away some of that to-do list that's kind of ruminating throughout your mind, right? So, maybe that is, whatever you need to do for the next day. Maybe that's setting up your morning routine, getting your work things together, whatever you need to do to kind of help that morning flow a little bit easier, right? The next 20 minutes, focusing on some just just normal hygiene, changing into your PJs, washing your face, brushing your teeth, doing any kind of nightly beauty or hygiene routines that you want to do. Another 20 minutes would be, focusing on calming nighttime activities. It doesn't have to necessarily be meditation and mindfulness. It could be something just as simple as reading a chapter in a book, or turning on some aromatherapy. There's such great tech that is helping so many more people sleep better in terms of bedtime stories or sound machines or podcasts, any kind of soothing apps that can kind of help you sleep better. So incorporate a great bedtime routine with any kind of calming activity that works for you. Something that I do talk a lot about is once you go to bed, if you're struggling and you're tossing and turning and you're having difficulty falling asleep, it's okay to get out of bed and try again. Because what we want to avoid, again, coming back to that, building that strong association between sleep and your bedroom, when you are tossing and turning and starting to clock watch, which we've all been guilty of doing while being in bed, that in itself can kind of heighten any stress or anxiety that you might already be feeling. So it's a slippery slope. So it's okay to actually get out of bed, do a quiet, and this could be at 3 o'clock in the morning, do a quiet activity, maybe read a chapter. Don't turn on every light, don't turn on the TV, don't read emails or any kind of, don't immerse yourself in any kind of stressful input, but, maybe read a few chapters in a book for about 10 or 15 minutes, do a little puzzle, whatever is going to kind of keep you in that low stimulation, and then get into bed and try again. You might have to get out of bed again. Like you might have to do that a few times throughout the night, but in doing so, it will be easier then to fall back asleep the sooner you get into bed, and you're building that strong association between sleep and your bed.
The Ontario Caregiver Organization has created a series of free webinars to help caregivers in their role. From financial planning for caregivers to mental health, these webinars provide support and resources to caregivers across the province on a wide range of topics. Our goal is to help ease the everyday stresses and challenges of being a caregiver. You're not alone. We're here for you. Register for an upcoming webinar today at ontariocaregiver.ca. I'd like to talk a little bit more about our environment for sleep. And this is something that I'm really particular about, but I'm not sure if everyone is. But in one of your blogs, you write about the science behind sheets and blankets and why they help with one's sleep. So I'm really fascinated to talk about this. Can you tell our listeners a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, what we sleep on and with, I think is so important. And something that I talk a lot about is I think it's really important to really customize your side of the bed to you. So, going into the science of the blanket, as we near bedtime, our body's core temperature drops and we stay in a cooler state of sleep. We all sleep better in a cooler environment. Our body stays in a cooler thermoregulation temperature throughout the night. If we don't have that blanket on, however thick or thin it might be, we don't want our body to be too cold because then our body's going to be working too hard to warm up. So then, our bodies can only do so many things at once. So if it's working too hard to either cool down or warm up, it's not able to work hard on going into a deeper quality state of sleep. So we want to make sure we're at a good core body temperature. So because our bodies tend to go into a cooler state of temperature and warm up as we get closer to the mornings, you really want to focus on the bedding that works best for you. So if you tend to be more of a hot sleeper, you want to focus on cooler fabrics, more breathable fabrics, think cotton, think more natural fabrics. If you're a night sweater, for women that, at a certain age, you tend to sweat more at night, or if you're going through something, you tend to sweat more at night, or you might naturally be a hotter sleeper. You want to focus on, again, more breathable fabrics, more wicking fabrics of sleep. That might not be what your partner wants. Your partner might be a cold sleeper and might need those thicker blankets. So it's okay to have different blankets. It's okay to have different pillows, whatever is going to work better to help you sleep better. There's also that sense of cue with that blanket. We've grown up knowing that we're getting tucked in, and to feel that pressure on us, that blanket pressure on us, is a cue for our body to prepare to sleep and to feel better and to start to sleep. So it's important to choose the right temperature of blanket or the right thickness of blanket that works best for you to sleep. So again, what you're sleeping with and what you're sleeping on can really play a huge role in how well or not well you're sleeping throughout the night.
As someone who sleeps beside someone that is a furnace,
Yeah.
and I am not necessarily, but I don't know what it is, but I don't think we've ever discussed, okay, maybe we can just have separate
Oh yeah.
blanket.
Yeah.
I don't know why I've never thought about this before, but it's an excellent point.
I always think outside the box. We're kind of formed into that tradition, right? Of, sharing it all, but you don't have to.
No, that's a great idea. That is a great idea. And I know weighted blankets have been a big thing lately. And I assume that is just for those people that need, that feeling of that extra security or weight on top of them. Because I know my husband could sleep with no sheets or blankets on him whatsoever. I cannot get to sleep unless I have that. So I guess the weighted blanket sort of works into that sort of equation.
Yeah, it definitely works with those that just need that pressure. So how a weighted blanket is becoming a very popular sleep tool. And I think for good reason. The weight and pressure of that weighted blanket activates our nervous system, which releases serotonin. This is the happy chemical, right? Serotonin also helps release melatonin. So in turn, it can actually help you sleep better. It can help reduce any kind of anxiety or stress that you might feel. So it can be a really great addition to an individual who might just need that thickness, that pressure, but also who could be suffering from any kind of stress or anxiety. Like I said, that is one popular sleep tool that is out now that I promote and I recommend can work really well for some individuals too.
And I think you said that's one tool that's out there right now. And I think the point is finding something that works for the individual, of course. I want to talk about something that is also can be polarizing sometimes in terms of sleep. Or do you use the term sleep hygiene at all?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of what we talked about today actually are some great sleep hygiene steps you can take.
Okay, let's talk about naps. And as someone, I used to be a person that never used to nap. And then I started working in the world of morning television, and it just ended up being an essential sometimes to join the rest of the world on their schedule. So let's talk about it in relation to caregivers who sometimes have, really intense schedules or wildly shifting schedules sometimes. If a caregiver just can't set aside enough hours in one night, let's say, is a nap during the day, which can be so tempting, beneficial or detrimental overall?
It depends on the individual. So at the end of the day, we are going to get the better quality of sleep at night because we all run off of a 24-hour clock, and that doesn't shift. That stays the same. So this is where, when we talk a lot about, the shift work community is growing larger and larger. This is where, again, coming back to that quality of sleep. We always want to be sleeping synced with our natural body clock. So during the night hours. Now, if you are someone who doesn't really struggle with sleep issues a lot, whose nights aren't interrupted that often, and you just want to get in that occasional nap, I say that's okay. If you are someone, though, who is really struggling with sleep at night, who has perhaps chronic insomnia or long-term sleep issues that they're dealing with, I would like to remove that sleep during the day and really focus on distributing it just at night. Because what can happen, and I understand why it happens, you're not sleeping great throughout the night. You're waking up super early in the morning. So, midday, you're tired and you want to take that nap. But what we don't want to be doing is, again, remember when I was talking about that drive for sleep, that nap is removing some of that drive. So it's just, again, like that vicious cycle, which is going to make falling asleep that much harder, which is going to cause more fragmented sleep throughout the night. So if you really want to focus on good quality night sleep, try to remove that daytime sleep. If you are an individual who sleeps pretty well, it's not a huge issue, and you just want to take that nap here or there, that's okay. To talk about naps, though, I think it's important also to talk about there is the right and the wrong way to nap. So if you are going to take a nap, I always say commit to that nap. Get in a good sleep environment to really promote good quality of sleep. Often what can happen is you tend to wake up from that nap almost feeling worse than when you originally went down for that nap, right? The reason why that is that's what we call sleep inertia. So it's kind of like a sleep hangover. So if we look at a cycle of sleep for an adult individual, you're looking at about 90 to 110 minutes of one cycle of sleep. We should be getting about 5 to 6 of those cycles per night. Throughout the day, though, for that one cycle of sleep, the quality of sleep shifts in that one cycle. So, we start in, it's what we call the sleep architect. Or architecture. We start in a lighter state of sleep. Then we transitioned into a deeper state of sleep around that 30 to 60-minute mark. And then we cycle out into a lighter state of sleep again, closer to that 90-minute mark. So if you're going to take a nap, focus on like a 15 to 20-minute nap. You're not going to get great quality of sleep because you're going to remain in that lighter state of sleep, but it will be enough sleep to help you feel refreshed, re-energized, and ready to tackle the rest of the day. If you're waking up in that 30 to 60-minute mark, you're waking up in that deeper state of sleep. And that's where you tend to feel more of that sleep hangover because you're waking up in that deeper state of sleep. So we want to avoid that. So either take that 15 to 20-minute nap or commit to the full 90 minutes, commit to the full cycle of sleep, set your alarm. And then again, you'll wake up. You always want to try and wake up in that lighter state of sleep than in that deeper state of sleep.
I think that's going to be incredibly helpful for many people, especially our caregivers, when they're trying to just sort of balance their schedules and get the sleep when they can. But I do like the idea of, maybe if you can push it to waiting to the evening without having to use caffeine, I guess, that might be the better option. And I do understand that, having kind of worked many different schedules myself. I've tried all the things, and that's usually what works best for me. So hopefully it will work well for our caregivers as well. What do you think is the biggest misconception surrounding better sleep and how to achieve it?
I think it comes back to what I was saying before about not putting it in the same, or not valuing it in the same way as we do other wellness steps we're taking in our life. We tend to kind of wear sleep deprivation as that badge of honor. We all want to sleep more because we all talk about how tired we are, but it tends to be kind of low on our list of things to really focus on because, again, we sleep, right? So whether you're sleeping enough or the right amount, we do sleep. So we don't perhaps know or realize that we need to sleep better. We need to sleep longer. I think the biggest misconception is how important sleep is and what it does for us. There's still so much research being done on why we need to sleep and what happens when we are actually sleeping. But what we do know is that it helps, restore our energy. It helps repair any damage that could be, that has been done to our body that day. It helps consolidate our memories. It helps prepare our brain. Think of your brain as that sponge. It helps prepare that sponge for the next day. It also helps cement in all the information that you've learned that day. So much goes on inside of us when we're getting a good night of sleep. So, we have to kind of put it at the same level of working out more and eating better and really focusing on it. Thankfully, I would say in the past 4, maybe even 5 years, I feel like there's more talk about sleep health and there's more focus on sleeping better than there was when I first started Goodnight Sleep Site, for sure. People didn't really understand the importance of sleeping better or why they needed to. So I'm happy to see that that's happening, and I'm happy to see more people talking about it. We also have things like the Fitbits and the Apple Watches that's now monitoring our sleep. And while I'm not a huge fan of those things because I don't think that they properly monitor your sleep quality, I like that they're starting those discussions, and they're starting to get people to focus on their sleep hygiene, like you said, or focusing on putting a great sleep plan together to sleep well. So we just need to focus on sleep in the same way that we would focus on eating better and moving more and helping us be more mindful and present. Sleep is just as important as those things.
Alanna, you've given us so many great tips. I think that all of our caregivers are going to be able to use and hopefully put into practice as well. I'm sure that many people are going to want to find out more about you and what they do. So where can they find you?
Absolutely. You can head over to our website. So it's goodnightsleepsite.com. You can also find me on Instagram at GNSleepSite. And I'm also on Facebook, Goodnight Sleep Site. And then you can listen to my podcast where you download any podcast. And it's called This Girl Loves Sleep.
I love it. I do love sleep as well. So thank you. Thank you so much for this. And Alanna, thank you so much for being a guest on our show today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode. You can access more details about support services on our website, ontariocaregiver.ca. Until next time, I'm Michelle Jobin, and you have been listening to Time to Talk, a podcast for caregivers. We hope you have a wonderful day.